A waitress wipes down the last table. Marinara stains mark her uniform like battle scars. The private dining room, reserved for men who control the city from shadows, finally sits silent. Then she hears it. Piano notes. Tentative. Searching. Disconnected. Coming from the music alcove. Tammy Hickson freezes, cloth still in her hand. She follows the sound. Inside, a little girl sits at the grand piano. Red dress. Silk blindfold covering her eyes. Small fingers reaching across the keys like she's trying to find something she's never seen. Tammy recognizes the melody, Debussy's Clair de Lune, but here's all the missing pieces. "May I help you?" she whispers. The girl turns her head toward the voice. Smiles. "Yes, please." Tammy sits beside her. Two pairs of hands begin to play. One worn from carrying trays. One small and delicate. The broken melody becomes whole. Behind the half-open door, a man in a black suit stands motionless. Tattooed hand gripping a glass of whiskey. George Smith watches. Listens. His daughter, who hasn't smiled since her mother's funeral 2 years ago, is laughing softly as the music flows. If you're ready to enjoy this story, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Your support helps us in creating more amazing stories, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's jump right into the story. Her name is Tammy Hickson, 28 years old, waitress at Carlotta's Italian restaurant. But Tammy was not always a waitress. 5 years ago, she had a full scholarship to Berkshire Music Conservatory. She played Rachmaninoff with her eyes closed. Her mother sat in the back row at every recital, beaming with pride Tammy didn't know was borrowed from casino chips and loan sharks. Then came the night her mother disappeared. No note. Just $127,000 in gambling debts and a voicemail that said, "I'm sorry, baby. You'll understand someday." Tammy dropped out 3 weeks before graduation. Sold her piano. Took the first job where no one knew her name, where she could disappear into the rhythm of taking orders and wiping tables, where touching a piano became a memory too painful to reach for. She hasn't played in 3 years. Every dollar goes to paying off her mother's debts. Every sacrifice is survival. Every day is designed to be invisible. But tonight, something pulls her back. The girl at the piano cannot be more than 8 years old. Her eyes don't move, don't focus. She is blind. Yet her fingers move across the keys with determination. She plays by ear. No sheet music. No teacher. Just pure instinct. Tammy watches her for a moment. Then she sits down. "You're close," Tammy says softly. But music isn't just about hitting the right keys. It's about feeling the space between the notes. That's where the truth lives. The girl turns her head toward Tammy's voice. "Who are you?" "Just someone who used to play." Tammy hesitates. "What's your name?" "Nancy." "Beautiful name. Do you come here often, Nancy?" Nancy nods. "Every Thursday. My daddy has business dinners. I wait upstairs. And I play." Tammy notices the bracelet on her wrist. Silver, with words engraved. "Mommy's light." "That's a special bracelet," Tammy says quietly. Nancy touches it gently. "My mommy gave it to me before she went to heaven." Tammy doesn't ask more. She understands loss. She understands loneliness. "Would you like me to show you something?" Tammy asks. Nancy's face lights up. "Yes, please." Tammy places her hands on the keys. She plays the same melody, but this time it's complete. The notes flow like water. Smooth. Effortless. Alive. Nancy listens. Her smile grows. "It sounds like being brave." "Exactly," Tammy whispers. Music isn't just sound. It's emotion. It's color. It's everything you feel but cannot see. "Can you teach me?" Nancy asks. Tammy hesitates. She looks at her stained uniform, her calloused hands. She doesn't belong in this world. She gave up the right to teach anyone anything when she sold her dreams for debt payments. But then she sees Nancy's smile. Her hope. "Yes," Tammy says. "I can teach you." From that night on, Tammy returns every Thursday evening after her shift ends. She brings no payment, asks for nothing in return. She teaches Nancy how to feel the music, how to let the melody guide her fingers, how to play not with her eyes, but with her heart. Nancy learns quickly. Her playing transforms. The disconnected notes become stories, become dreams. And for the first time in 3 years, Tammy feels alive again. But she doesn't know that someone is watching. Someone who has been listening from the shadows. Someone who will soon change everything. Tammy's hands shake as she counts the cash in her apron pocket. $43 in tips. Minus the bus fare. Minus the instant ramen. That leaves $38 toward a debt that never seems to shrink. She remembers when her hands shook for different reasons. When they trembled before walking onto the stage at Berkshire Music Conservatory. When Professor Chin would watch her play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 and say, You don't just play music, Tammy. You breathe it. 5 years ago, she had everything mapped out. Full scholarship. Spring graduation. An audition with the Boston Symphony Orchestra already scheduled. Her mother sat in the back row at every recital, wearing the same blue dress, beaming with a pride that seemed to glow brighter each performance. Tammy didn't know that glow was bought with borrowed money. Casino chips. Loan sharks who smiled with gold teeth and called at 3 a.m. The night her mother disappeared, Tammy came home to find their apartment stripped bare. No furniture. No piano. Just an envelope on the kitchen counter containing a pawn shop receipt and a voicemail on her phone. I'm sorry, baby. I thought I could win it back. I always thought I could win it back. You'll understand someday. You're strong. Stronger than me. Don't try to find me. Just live your life. The debt was $127,000. Tammy dropped out 3 weeks before graduation. Professor Chin called 17 times. She never answered. How do you explain that music, the thing that was supposed to save you, became the luxury you couldn't afford? That every hour spent practicing was an hour she could have been working, earning, surviving? She sold everything. Her sheet music. Her performance gowns. The Yamaha upright her grandmother left her. The buyer, a man with kind eyes and a daughter who looked excited, asked if she was sure. Tammy nodded. She couldn't speak. If she spoke, she would have screamed. The waitress job at Carlotta's came through a friend of a friend. No questions asked. No background checks. Just show up, keep your head down, serve the food, take the tips. Disappear into the rhythm of other people's meals. Other people's celebrations. Other people's lives. For 3 years, Tammy built a life designed around one principle. Invisibility. Don't make connections. Don't take risks. Don't touch pianos in empty restaurants after midnight because the muscle memory might break you. She sends every spare dollar to a P.O. box in Delaware. The debt collectors cash the checks and send back statements that barely move. Sometimes she calculates how long it will take. At this rate, she'll be 46 when it's paid off. 46 years old and free to finally play again. If she even remembers how. But tonight, sitting beside Nancy in the music alcove, feeling the keys beneath her fingers for the first time in 3 years, Tammy realizes she never forgot. The music was always there, waiting, like a language you can't unlearn, even when you've sworn never to speak it again. Nancy's fingers hover over the keys like hummingbirds, uncertain where to land. She plays the opening of Clair de Lune again, but the notes come out mechanical. Correct, but lifeless. You're searching, Tammy says gently. Don't search. Feel. But I can't see where my hands are supposed to go. Good. That means you have to listen instead. Tammy places her hand lightly over Nancy's. The space between the notes. That's where the truth lives. Not in hitting the right keys, but in knowing when to let the silence speak. She guides Nancy through the passage again. This time slower. This time with breath between each phrase. Nancy's face changes. Her shoulders relax. The melody becomes something softer, something real. Like that, Tammy whispers. You felt it, didn't you? Nancy nods, smiling. It's like the song is telling me where to go. Exactly. They practice for 20 minutes.
Scales.
Arpeggios. A simple piece by Chopin that Nancy stumbles through with determined joy. When they finish, Nancy turns toward Tammy's voice. Do you come here every Thursday?
Tammy asks. Yes.
My daddy has business dinners downstairs. Important meetings. He says I should wait upstairs where it's quiet. Nancy's voice drops. He's very busy. He has a lot of responsibilities. Do you get lonely? Nancy doesn't answer right away. She touches the bracelet on her wrist. Silver, delicate, with words Tammy can barely make out in the dim light. Sometimes, Nancy admits. But I have this. My mommy gave it to me. What does it say? Mommy's light. Nancy traces the engraving with her fingertip. She used to say I was her light. That even though I couldn't see, I made everything brighter for her. Her voice cracks. She died 2 years ago. Car accident. Tammy's throat tightens. She knows that particular species of grief. The kind that doesn't announce itself but lives in the pauses between words. I'm so sorry, Nancy. Daddy doesn't like to talk about her. He gets quiet. Sometimes I hear him in his office late at night, and I know he's looking at her picture. Nancy's hands rest on the keys. That's why I come here.
To play.
Mommy loved music. She said music was the one thing that couldn't lie to you. Tammy blinks back tears. Your mother was right. Will you come back next Thursday? Nancy asks suddenly. Please? I don't have anyone to play with. The other teachers Daddy hired, they all treat me like I'm broken. Like I'm too fragile. But you don't. Tammy hesitates. She thinks about Vincent's rules. About staying invisible. About the danger of forming connections in a world designed to punish people like her for wanting more than survival. But she looks at Nancy's hopeful face. At the bracelet. At the small hands resting on the piano keys. Yes, Tammy says. I'll come back. Nancy's smile could light the entire city. Every Thursday becomes their secret. Their ritual. The 1 hour where a waitress remembers who she used to be, and a blind girl learns that darkness doesn't mean you have to stop reaching for beauty. 6 Thursdays pass like stolen time. Tammy finishes her shift at 11, clocks out, waits for Vincent to disappear into his office with his clipboard and paranoia. Then she takes the back stairs to the private dining room, where Nancy waits at the piano bench, already playing scales with increasing confidence. Miss Tammy. Nancy's face lights up when she hears the footsteps. She's learned to recognize the rhythm of Tammy's walk. Quick, but quiet. Purposeful, but careful. Hello, little one. They begin with warm-ups. Then Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, simplified, but beautiful. Nancy's playing has transformed. The hesitation is gone. Her fingers move with certainty now, guided not by sight but by feeling, by trust. Tammy watches her and realizes something dangerous. She feels alive again. For the first time in 3 years, she wakes up looking forward to something other than survival. The debt is still there. The exhaustion is still there. But Thursday nights make it bearable. Tonight, Nancy pauses mid-phrase. Tilts her head. Miss Tammy, can I ask you something? Of course. What does red look like? Tammy blinks. She looks at Nancy's red dress, at the silk blindfold, at the world her student has never seen but somehow understands better than most people who can. Red, Tammy says slowly, is hard to explain with words. Then explain it with music. Tammy smiles. She places her hands on the keys. She plays a rising scale in C major, bold, bright, climbing with intensity. Then she shifts to a minor key, adding depth and warmth. The notes crescendo, powerful and unapologetic. That's red, Tammy says. It's the feeling of being brave, of standing up even when you're scared. It's your heart beating fast before you do something important. Nancy listens, absorbing every note. My dress is red. I know. So, I'm wearing bravery. You are. Nancy runs her fingers over the keys, thoughtfully. What did my mommy's voice sound like? Daddy says I'm too young to remember, but sometimes I think I do. Sometimes I hear her in my dreams. Tammy's chest tightens. What do you remember?
Soft.
Like a lullaby. She used to sing to me before bed. I don't remember the words, but I remember how it felt. Nancy's voice drops to a whisper. Safe. Then that's what her voice sounded like. Tammy says gently. Safe. Do you think she can hear me play? Tammy doesn't believe in easy answers. Doesn't believe in false comfort. But she looks at Nancy's hopeful face and knows some truths matter more than certainty. Yes, she says. I think she hears every note. Nancy smiles. She places her hands back on the keys and begins to play. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but with something more important than technical precision. She plays with love. Tammy sits beside her, adding harmony to the melody. Two people who've lost everything, finding something in the space between the notes. Something neither of them has words for. Outside the half-open door, George Smith stands in the hallway. He's been standing there for 15 minutes, listening, watching his daughter smile in a way he hasn't seen since the funeral. He doesn't interrupt. He just listens. And for the first time in 2 years, he remembers what hope sounds like. Vincent Caruso watches the security footage for the third time, his jaw clenched so tight it aches. There she is. Tammy Hickson, waitress. Nobody. Sitting at the grand piano in the private dining room with a child. A child he doesn't recognize but knows must be important because she's been waiting upstairs every Thursday for weeks, while some VIP conducts business below. Vincent rewinds. Watches Tammy's hands on the keys. Watches the girl laugh. Watches them play together, like they're friends. Like Tammy has forgotten her place. He's been manager at Carlotta's for 8 years. 8 years of maintaining order. Of ensuring the right people get the right tables. Of making sure the staff understands the hierarchy. Waitresses serve. They don't teach. They don't form relationships with clients. They certainly don't touch expensive instruments that belong to the restaurant's most exclusive room. Rules exist for a reason. Liability. Boundaries.
Control.
Vincent saves the footage. Burns it onto a disc. Waits for Friday morning when Tammy arrives for her shift. She's tying her apron when he calls her into his office. Close the door, he says. Tammy does. She stands in front of his desk, still holding her order pad. Something in his expression makes her stomach drop. Vincent turns his computer screen toward her. Presses play. She watches herself sit down beside Nancy. Watches them play together. Watches 7 weeks of Thursday nights compressed into 4 minutes of evidence. Explain, Vincent says. She was alone. She wanted to learn. She's not your concern. Vincent's voice is cold. Surgical. Do you know whose child that is? Her name is Nancy. She. I don't care what her name is. I care that you violated every boundary policy this restaurant has. Inappropriate contact with a VIP's child. Unauthorized use of restaurant property. Being in areas you're not assigned to after hours. He leans forward. Do you understand the liability you've created? If something had happened to that girl, if her father found out a waitress was alone with her. I was teaching her piano. You're a waitress, not a teacher. Vincent's words land like a gavel. This isn't your world, Tammy. People like you don't get to decide when the rules don't apply. You serve food. You take orders. You stay in your lane. Tammy's hands shake. She was lonely. She needed. What she needs is none of your business. Vincent opens a drawer, pulls out an envelope. 2 weeks severance. More than generous considering. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Vincent, please. Leave your apron on the desk. Security will escort you out. Tammy stares at the envelope, at the apron in her hands, at 8 years of staying invisible, shattered by 7 weeks of feeling alive. I need this job, she whispers. You should have thought of that before you forgot your place. Vincent picks up his phone. Security to the manager's office. Tammy removes her apron slowly, places it on the desk like she's surrendering a flag. The envelope sits there. 2 weeks of pay. A consolation prize for losing the only stability she had. Rules are not suggestions, Vincent says as she turns to leave. Maybe next time you'll remember that. The security guard walks her through the kitchen, past the other waitresses who look away, past the private dining room where the piano sits silent, past the life she almost let herself want. 4 days without work feels like 4 years. Tammy sends out applications to every restaurant within bus distance. Diners, chain restaurants, coffee shops.
Most don't call back.
The ones that do ask why she left her last job. She can't tell them the truth. Can't explain that she was fired for teaching a blind girl to play piano. It sounds absurd. It sounds like she's hiding something worse. The severance money sits on her kitchen counter. She counts it every morning, divides it by rent, by bus fare, by instant ramen, by the debt payment due in 11 days. The math doesn't work. It never works. She doesn't let herself think about Nancy, about whether the girl waited on Thursday, about whether she understood why Miss Tammy never came. Thinking about it makes her chest hurt in a way that has nothing to do with money or survival. On the 5th night, her phone rings. Unknown number. She almost doesn't answer. Debt collectors use unknown numbers. Hello? Miss Tammy? The voice is small, shaking.
Nancy.
Nancy? How did you? I took Daddy's phone. He's in a meeting. Nancy's words come fast, choked with tears. You didn't come. On Thursday. I waited and you didn't come. Did I do something wrong? Did I play badly? No, sweetheart, no. You played beautifully. Then why did you leave? Nancy's voice breaks. Please don't leave me like Mommy did. I thought you were my friend. I thought. She's crying now. Full, gasping sobs. Tammy closes her eyes. Every rational instinct screams at her to hang up, to protect herself, to stay invisible. Vincent was right. This isn't her world. She doesn't belong in the life of a VIP's daughter. She's a waitress with $127,000 in debt and no job and no right to play savior. But she hears Nancy crying. Hears the loneliness, the abandonment, the same wound Tammy carries every day since her mother disappeared. Nancy, listen to me. I didn't leave you. I would never leave you. Then come back. Please. I miss you. Tammy looks at her apartment, at the severance envelope, at the safe, invisible life she's built from the wreckage of her dreams. Okay, she whispers. I'll come back. She takes the bus to Carlotta's at midnight. The restaurant is closed.
Dark.
She knows the side entrance near the kitchen, the lock that doesn't catch properly. She slips inside. Nancy is waiting at the piano. She jumps up when she hears Tammy's footsteps, throws her arms around her waist. You came. You really came. I promised, didn't I?
They sit at the piano.
Tammy's hands shake as she places them on the keys. This is reckless. This is dangerous. This could destroy what little she has left. But Nancy leans against her shoulder, and they begin to play. The lights snap on. Vincent stands in the doorway, phone in hand. Behind him, 2 security guards. Behind them, the restaurant owner, Mr. DeLuca. Breaking and entering, Vincent says. His smile is vicious. I have witnesses this time. George Smith doesn't ask questions lightly. When he wants information, he gets it.
Thoroughly. Completely.
Without gaps. The manager's call comes on Friday afternoon. Vincent Caruso, voice tight with self-importance, explaining that he's handled a situation involving George's daughter, a waitress. Inappropriate contact. Terminated immediately for everyone's protection. George hangs up without saying thank you. He makes 3 calls. The first to his head of security. The second to someone who owes him a favor at Berkshire Music Conservatory. The third to a private investigator who doesn't ask why. By Saturday evening, he has a file on his desk. Tammy Marie Hickson, age 28, born in Dorchester. Full scholarship to Berkshire Music Conservatory, piano performance. Withdrew 3 weeks before graduation. Last known employment, Carlotta's Italian restaurant, terminated November 11th. But it's the notes that make George read slower. Mother, Linda Hickson. Gambling addiction. Disappeared March 2022, leaving $127,000 in debts to various creditors, 2 with known organized crime connections. Daughter assumed all debts. Current payment plan, $800 per month. Projected payoff, 2038. George closes the file, looks at the numbers again. A waitress making maybe $30,000 a year, paying off her mother's mistakes. Dropped out of conservatory not because she failed, but because she had no choice. He thinks about the security footage Vincent showed him. Tammy's sitting beside Nancy, their hands on the keys together. Nancy's face, lit up in a way he hasn't seen since Elena died. That night, George works late in his study. Nancy practices piano in the music room down the hall. He's heard her play before, hesitant, searching, mechanical. The expensive teachers he hired treated her like glass. Like her blindness made her fragile. But tonight, something is different. The notes float through the house. Moonlight Sonata. Nancy's playing, but it's transformed. There's emotion now.
Wait.
Understanding. She's not just hitting keys, she's telling a story. George sets down his whiskey, walks to the music room, stands in the doorway. Nancy plays with her eyes closed behind the blindfold, unnecessary but comforting. Her small hands move with confidence.
With joy.
When she finishes, she smiles.
Daddy?
Are you there? I'm here, princess. George's voice is rough. That was beautiful. When did you learn to play like that? Nancy's smile falters. Miss Tammy taught me. But she stopped coming. I don't know why. George knows why. Vincent Caruso, protecting boundaries, maintaining control, firing a waitress for daring to teach a VIP's daughter. Tell me about Miss Tammy, George says quietly. Nancy's face lights up. She's magic, Daddy. She doesn't treat me like I'm broken. She says music isn't about seeing, it's about feeling. She taught me that red sounds like being brave. That Mommy can hear me play. Tears slip beneath her blindfold. But I think she left me. Everyone leaves. George feels something crack in his chest. The same crack that formed when Elena died. When he realized all his power, all his control, couldn't save the one person who mattered. His daughter has been transformed by a stranger. A waitress with nothing. A woman who gave Nancy something he, with all his money, all his connections, couldn't provide.
Hope.
Nancy, George says, what if I told you Miss Tammy didn't leave? What if someone made her go away? Nancy turns toward his voice. Can you bring her back? George thinks about the file on his desk. About Vincent Caruso. About the rules that keep people like Tammy in their place.
Yes, he says.
I can bring her back. George arrives at Carlotta's at 12:37 a.m. His driver parks in the back. No need to be seen. No need to announce himself. The side entrance is unlocked. Someone broke in. He already knows who. He hears the piano before he sees them.
A duet.
For hands. One melody split between two people who found each other in the space between the notes. George walks quietly down the hallway. Stops at the doorway to the private dining room. His hand rests on his jacket. The weight of the gun beneath it a habit, not a threat. Nancy sits at the piano, her red dress bright against the dark wood. Beside her, a woman in jeans and a cardigan. Hair pulled back. No makeup. Exhausted eyes that light up when Nancy laughs. They're playing Beethoven. For Elise. Simple but achingly beautiful the way they perform it. Nancy takes the melody. Tammy adds the harmony. When Nancy stumbles, Tammy doesn't correct her, just adjusts, makes space, lets the music flow around the imperfection. George watches his daughter smile. Really smile. The kind of smile that reaches her whole face, that makes her look like Elena used to look when she was truly happy. The song ends. Nancy claps her hands together. Again? Tammy asks. Again. Ahem. Both of them freeze. Nancy's head turns toward the door.
Daddy.
George steps into the light. He doesn't say anything. Just looks at Tammy. At the woman who broke into his restaurant. Who defied termination. Who risked everything to sit with his daughter at midnight. Tammy stands slowly. Her hands shake. George notices. He notices everything. Nancy, go wait in the hallway, George says quietly. But Daddy.
Now.
Nancy's lip trembles. Tammy touches her shoulder gently. It's okay. Go ahead. Nancy leaves reluctantly. The door closes behind her. George and Tammy stand 10 feet apart. The piano between them. The silence heavy. Do you know who I am? George asks. His voice is soft. Dangerous. Tammy swallows. Nancy's father. That's not what I'm asking. She looks at him. Really looks. At the tailored suit that costs more than she makes in 6 months. At the tattoos visible beneath his collar. At the controlled stillness of a man who's used to people being afraid of him. I know who Nancy is, Tammy says. Her voice shakes but doesn't break. That's all that matters. George studies her. This waitress with nothing. This woman who's risking arrest, risking worse, just to keep a promise to a blind girl who waited at a piano. Do you know what I do? He asks. I can guess. And you came back anyway. She called me crying. She thought I abandoned her. Tammy's hands curl into fists. I've been abandoned. I know what it feels like. I wasn't going to do that to her. George is silent. He thinks about the file on his desk. About the debt. About this woman who gave up everything and still found something to give his daughter. She's different, he says finally. Since you started teaching her. She smiles. She plays with joy. Something I haven't seen since her mother died. Nancy is extraordinary. You gave her something I couldn't. George's jaw tightens. Do you understand what that means? That you, a waitress with nothing, gave my daughter something I, with everything, failed to provide. Tammy doesn't answer. Doesn't know what he wants her to say. George walks to the piano. Runs his hand over the keys. Be here tomorrow morning. 9 a.m., don't be late. Why? He looks at her. Because I'm not finished with you yet. Tammy arrives at Carlotta's at 8:53 a.m. Her hands won't stop shaking. She didn't sleep.
Couldn't eat.
Spent the entire night trying to understand what George Smith wants from her and coming up with nothing good. The front door is unlocked. Inside, the restaurant is empty except for 3 men sitting at a table near the window. George Smith, Vincent Caruso, and Mr. DeLuca, the owner, a man Tammy has seen maybe twice in 2 years. Vincent's face goes white when he sees her. Sit, George says, gesturing to an empty chair. Tammy sits. Her heart pounds so hard she can feel it in her throat. George doesn't waste time. He turns to Vincent. Tell me again why you fired Miss Hickson. Vincent straightens his tie. Inappropriate contact with a VIP's child. Violation of boundary policies. Unauthorized use of. The child's name is Nancy. George interrupts. Nancy Smith. My daughter. The silence is absolute. Vincent's mouth opens. Closes. Opens again. I didn't know. You didn't ask. George's voice is calm. Terrifyingly calm. You saw a waitress teaching a child and assumed she was overstepping. You saw someone at a piano and thought about liability instead of asking why an 8-year-old girl was alone in a restaurant after midnight every Thursday. Mr. DeLuca leans forward. Mr. Smith, I assure you, if I had known. You didn't know because you don't pay attention. George looks at Vincent. And you fired the only person in this building who treated my daughter like a human being instead of a problem to be managed. Vincent's face is the color of spoiled milk. Mr. Smith, I was following protocol. I was protecting what? Your control? Your precious rules. George leans back. My daughter has been coming here for 6 months. 6 months of waiting alone while I conducted business. Not once did you check on her. Not once did you ask if she needed anything. But the moment someone showed her kindness, you called it inappropriate. I apologize.
Sincerely.
I didn't realize. You're right. You didn't. George's eyes are ice. You're going to apologize to Miss Hickson. And you're going to beg her to forgive you. And then you're going to thank me for letting you keep your job. Vincent turns to Tammy. His jaw works. His pride wrestling with survival. I apologize, he says stiffly. I was mistaken. I acted hastily.
Beg, George says.
Vincent's face crumbles.
Please. I'm sorry.
I'm truly sorry. Please forgive me. Tammy doesn't know what to say. Doesn't know what George wants from this humiliation. George turns to her. Miss Hickson, I'm establishing a foundation. The Smith Foundation, dedicated to bringing music education to children with disabilities. Legitimate. Legal. Properly funded. He pauses. I want you to be the music director. Tammy blinks. What? Full salary. Benefits. Your own studio. You'll design the curriculum. Hire teachers. Build something real. George's expression doesn't change. And your mother's debt? Consider it paid. The room tilts. Why? Because my daughter learned more from you in 7 weeks than from years of expensive teachers. Because you came back when you had every reason not to. George leans forward. Because I need someone who understands that music isn't a luxury. It's survival. Tammy looks at Vincent's humiliated face. At Mr. DeLuca's careful neutrality. At George Smith, a man whose power is visible in the way everyone holds their breath when he speaks. I don't know anything about running a foundation, she whispers. You know music. You know how to teach. The rest, we'll figure out. George stands. Take the day. Think about it. But know this, my daughter needs you. And I always get what my daughter needs. 1 year later, the Smith Music Academy opens its doors on a Saturday evening in November. The concert hall holds 200 people. Every seat is filled. Parents, donors, local politicians who smile for cameras. And in the back row, wearing a suit without the gun beneath it, George Smith sits alone. Tammy stands backstage, watching through the curtain gap as the audience settles. She's wearing a black dress, the first new dress she's bought in 5 years. Her hair is pulled back. Her hands are steady. A year ago, she was a waitress counting tips. A year ago, she believed music was a luxury she couldn't afford. A year ago, she was invisible. Now she's music director of an academy that serves 43 students. Children who are blind, deaf, autistic, paralyzed. Children the world told couldn't make music. Children who prove every day that the world is wrong. Nancy appears beside her, wearing a red dress and a new bracelet on her wrist. Silver like the old one. But the engraving is different. Are you nervous, Miss Tammy? Nancy asks. Tammy smiles. Terrified. Me too. Nancy touches her bracelet. But that's okay. You taught me that. What does it say? Tammy asks, though she already knows. Nancy holds it up. Music is courage. George gave it to Nancy 3 months ago. The night she played her first full recital without mistakes. The night he told Tammy, quietly, that he'd stepped back from most of his operations. That he was building something legitimate. Something Elena would have been proud of. The lights dim. Tammy walks onto the stage. The audience applauds. Good evening, she says into the microphone. Her voice doesn't shake. Welcome to the opening concert of Smith Music Academy. Tonight, you'll hear music performed by students who've been told they can't. Who've been told they're too different, too disabled, too broken to create beauty. She pauses. Looks at the faces in the audience. Finds George in the back row. This academy exists because one man heard his daughter play piano and realized she'd been transformed by a stranger. Because he understood that music isn't a luxury. It's a lifeline. It's proof that we can create beauty even when the world tells us we have nothing to offer. Tammy gestures to the wings. Our opening performance will be Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, performed by Nancy Smith. Nancy walks onto the stage, her hand trailing along the wall until she reaches the piano. She sits, adjusts her blindfold, places her hands on the keys. The audience is silent. Nancy begins to play. The music fills the hall, achingly beautiful, technically precise, emotionally devastating. This is not a child playing notes. This is an artist telling a story. About loss. About hope. About finding light in darkness. George watches his daughter. Tears run down his face. He doesn't wipe them away. When Nancy finishes, the audience erupts. Standing ovation. Applause that goes on for minutes. Tammy returns to the stage. Stands beside Nancy. takes her hand. The most important thing I learned this year, Tammy says, is that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's playing the song anyway, even when you can't see where your hands will land. It's trusting that the music will guide you, that the space between the notes holds truth. That sometimes the most dangerous thing we can do, she looks at George, is open our hearts. Nancy squeezes her hand. In the back row, George Smith, former crime lord, current father forever changed, stands and applauds. Not for the performance. For the woman who saved his daughter. For the daughter who saved him. For the music that saved them all. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Like this video if you believe in second chances and the power of courage. And share it with someone who needs to remember that it's never too late to reclaim your dreams. Your support helps us bring more stories of hope and redemption to life.